What's going on with your gang? Today we got these three people had their faces ripped off and eaten by animals. Man, I ain't did one of these in a minute, so let's sit back, relax, and enjoy this shit, man. For real, for real. Let's get high. Let's get high. Hey, man, my mama don't be liking my content, and that's fine. You know, like one day I'm gonna be able to buy my mom a big ass motherfucking house, and I'm gonna be like, Ma, this came from the shit that you didn't like, that you didn't approve of. You feel me, Miss Lady? So get over it. Type shit. You feel me? I don't like that. Hold on. Hold on. I need some. I need some. We got something. Houston, our problem is solved. But if y'all got any animal videos or whatever, somebody that you know getting attacked by an animal or whatever, man, y'all could, or you getting attacked by an animal, man, send that my way. I'll react to it. I'll put it on the channel, react to it on me. Shit. Man, send that shit. That shit be funny as hell, dog. Or, yeah. If y'all got any videos, man, somebody like slap boxing, whatever. Boxing, whatever. Send it my way. That shit would be hard. That shit would be fucking raw. I ain't gonna hold you. Hold on. I'm about to put this shit right up in there. Like that. I'm about to put it up in there like that. We about to grab her. Grab her. Grab her. Grab her. Put some grab her up in there. Then a little bit more of this. You feel me? More than the other. Then look. You get your lighter, right? Hold on. You get your lighter, right? You go like this. I need it to be more milkier.
Believe that being killed by a wild animal is the worst case scenario during an animal attack. But in some cases, this is far from the truth. Surviving a brutal animal attack can leave you with physical and emotional scars so severe that you may wish you hadn't made it out alive. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. In today's episode, we go over 3 times an animal has ripped a person's face off, leaving them questioning if surviving the attack was worth it. Welcome to Final Affliction.
Fuck. My face gone? Yeah.
Karma is a crazy concept, but one that is widely believed to keep the natural balance. It is the idea that if you do good things,
Hold on. He really hit that bit though. Look.
believed to keep the natural
Bitch,
balance.
I'm
It is the
stumbling.
idea that if you do good things, then good things will come to you. Likewise with doing bad things. We like to think that if we are good people, then we will be saved from negative energies around us, as it should only be reserved for those who intentionally commit bad behaviors. But what if this isn't the way the world works? What if every action is simply random and has no consequences on the outcome of a situation? These ramblings are probably close to what Wes Perkins was thinking in May of 2011, as a large grizzly bear ripped his face off in between his screams for help. Alaska's Seward Peninsula is on many people's bucket lists, with beautiful glacier hikes, the historic Iditarod Trail, and even the opportunity for whale watching activities. Despite its appeal, Visitors need to be constantly aware of their surroundings, as there are countless dangers in this icy wilderness. With most Arctic environments, the grizzly bear is able to thrive with its thick fur and expert hunting ability, which, in an area with an incredible diversity of fish and fauna, the grizzly bear is clearly the top predator. Despite this, these bears are particularly vulnerable in the spring as they are just emerging from hibernation. These animals will usually be in quite poor shape as they haven't eaten for months and might even have newborn young with them. They are weaker than usual and so are easier prey for humans. People have realized this, and so there is an annual tradition of spring bear hunts. This is where Wes Perkins becomes involved. In May 2011, Wes and two hunting buddies, Dan and Edward Stang, arrived in Seward Peninsula ready to hunt some bears together. They were avid outdoorsmen and regularly organized trips together to escape from the noise of their towns. A few days into their trip, they found the tracks of a large male bear and began to follow them into the snow using their snowmobiles. They could tell from the paw prints that this animal was an incredible size and would be the talk of the town if they were able to hunt and kill it. Suddenly, the tracks disappeared. Wes got off of the vehicle and searched the ground for any sign of the bear. Little did he know, the bear was watching him from 70 feet away and was just waiting for the perfect moment to strike, the moment that the hunter would become the hunted. The bear suddenly pounced, launching himself through the trees and straight towards Wes. Hearing the rustle behind him, Wes turned and was horrified to see the huge male bear rushing towards him with murder in his eyes. He tried to grab for his rifle, for anything that he could use in defense, but the bear was too fast. Instead of the weak and vulnerable bears they were expecting, this animal was in the prime of his health and ravenous from a long hibernation, about hungry enough to eat a human if he could get his paws on one. He knocked Wes to the ground as his massive frame smashed into him at 50 kilometers per hour and, in one swift movement, grabbed onto Wes's face. His head was dwarfed in comparison to this massive predator, and as he stared at the rows of teeth in front of his eyes, he knew that his chance of survival was very low from this point onwards. Almost immediately, the bear began to shake Wes like a dog would with a new toy, using all of his skills to try and kill his prey. As he shook, his teeth sank deeper into Wes's face, and he could hear his own skull cracking under the pressure that this animal was able to put him under. He bit more and more, harder and harder, trying to completely break his skull and end the whole ordeal. He forced his body into the ground and began to claw away at his body in an attempt to shred him into pieces. Wes felt that he didn't have long left. His pain was fading away and replaced with adrenaline that he knew he had no energy to even use. Pieces of skin and bone were being flung from his body as the animal viciously tried to kill him when his two friends finally arrived to the scene and saw the horrific scene. Not knowing if he was alive or not, they shot the bear quickly and from a safe distance. The bear let go of Wes while letting out a growl of pain before running into the safety of the forest. Once the men were sure that the bear had fled, they immediately attended to their friend, but they were horrified by what they saw. Wes's bone structure in his face was completely destroyed, with a terrifying array of bite marks and missing bone fragments strewn across his whole body. He was completely unrecognizable, and the majority of his face was hanging by loose strands of skin. He was missing his nose, his jaw had been ripped from his face, and, at this point, he was completely blind, clawing at his airways in an attempt to breathe. The father and son began to try and save his life, knowing that they would only have a short amount of time before Wes would become unresponsive, either from passing out from the pain or succumbing to his injuries. They questioned him to try and find out any information from the attack that may help him, but with no jaw, he was finding it impossible to respond to anything. He began to use hand signals instead, the only way that Wes would be able to communicate for a very long time after the attack. They radioed to Nome, the nearest town, informing the rangers of the situation and begging them for help. After hearing about the intensity of the attack and the condition of Wes, helicopters were dispatched in minutes, flying to the scene in an attempt to save Wes while they had the chance. While they were waiting, Wes...
Nigga, just let me die. I ain't got no jaw. I ain't got no eyes. I ain't got no face. Like, bro, I'm not gonna be me no more. Just, bro, you should have just let me go. Just try and walk me back. Let me get a casket, all of that, you feel me? Don't leave me out here. But yeah, just let me go. Fuck that.
drifted in and out of consciousness as the blood loss from the attack began to take effect. Once he was recovered into the rescue helicopter, he was immediately flown to Harborview Hospital, where he immediately was placed into a coma. He spent 5 days in this coma and underwent 26 life-saving surgeries, totaling over $1 million in medical bills. His face was completely reconstructed with titanium.
$1 million in medical bills, bro. This is what you wanted me to live for? I can't even see the fucking bill. He can't see the bill. He might as well have just took a dirt nap. Sorry. I'm sorry. Y'all fucked him. For real.
Replaced parts of his jaw where the bear had ripped it clean off, and he was unable to speak or eat independently for many months to come. He was unable to eat any solid food, so everything had to be fed to him from a blender, and his sight was barely salvageable, reduced to only light and dark. He was left with just half a tongue, something that the doctors were not able to rectify. And while he is now able to talk, it's heartbreaking for a man who loved to talk as much as he did, having to suffer these life-changing disabilities. Once he was finally released from hospital many months later, he then struggled with a methadone addiction due to the high pain that his injuries caused. He was unable to live life without the help of this drug, dulling the pain for hours on end, just for it to return with the same brutality as the day the attack happened. Luckily, with the support of his friends, family, and medical professionals, Wes was able to recover once again. The recovery process was long, painstakingly long, and there were times when Wes believed it would be easier to just die and escape the pain and horror of his ordeal. But he lived on. Despite the ferocity of the bear, the remoteness of the scene, and the horrific injuries that he sustained, Wes Perkins survived one of the worst bear attacks in history. Despite his ordeal, he says that he has no ill feelings towards bears, stating that they are neither good or bad, just wild animals, and people need to be careful around them. Wild animals will behave like wild animals. They are unpredictable and dangerous, but as long as you stay aware of your surroundings, then you should be able to survive. He is no longer able to hunt as he once did, but states that those who can should stay alert to stay alive and avoid the same fate as his own, having your face savagely bitten off by a bear and possibly meeting your final affliction.
Damn, that's crazy.
Tigers are one of the scariest animals in the world. Whilst their stripy orange and black coat might make them look beautiful and soft to the touch, these big cats are one creature that you definitely don't want to get up close and personal with. Sadly, sometimes people don't have a choice in the matter, especially when the tiger decides to attack you first. Officially the largest wild cat in the world, tigers are one of nature's most beautiful and wondrous creatures. Able to grow up to the weight of 360 kilograms, these big cats could easily pounce and hold a person down as if it is the easiest thing in the world to do. Usually, even though they are carnivores, tigers will eat things such as deer, wild pigs, antelope, buffalo, and other large mammals. Like most animals, it is generally scared of humans, and if one is about to come across its path, the tiger will simply run away and hide so as not to get into any trouble. However, as always, there are exceptions to this rule, where the animal will either attack a human out of fear, disease, or because it is an opportunistic hunter who will try and go for the easiest meal that it can find. Sadly, for the man in this story, he was on the receiving end of one of these attacks.
That nigga wearing a mask. He looked like a
Hashmat Ali had lived in his small village in a rural area of Bangladesh his entire life. But despite living in the village for over 40 years, he is not someone who likes to get out amongst the other villagers and be sociable with them. In
Anymore?
fact, for the last 20 years, Ali has lived as a virtual hermit after he was shunned by the village for something that happened to him many years ago. It was 1995, and Ali had recently turned 18 years old. Being a young man now, it was up to him to provide for himself and his family in any way that he could. Living in such a rural village, with very few ways to actually earn money, Ali turned to the one job that quite a lot of people in his village turned to. He became a fisherman and a forager. It was hard work for Ali, however. Because he was young, he was able to recover quickly from the physical strain of the work. Because of this, he was often picked to do the harder jobs during his work. However, Ali did not mind, as long as he was able to provide for himself and his family. Even though Ali would do whatever was asked of him, there were still some jobs that he enjoyed far less than others. One of those jobs was collecting honey. It was an incredibly difficult job, as the bees would be relentless in their attacks once they knew that their hive was being disturbed, which meant that Ali was often left with quite a few nasty stings. Still, as long as he was able to get money from his foraging and fishing, then he was happy to do the work. Nevertheless, things would soon change. It had started off as a normal day for Ali. He had woken up and headed straight to work. He had been told by his boss that it would be a busy few days for them, and that they needed to get onto the river and fishing as quickly as possible so that they could make more money. The first day had gone well. Ali was even able to find some honey, which he could easily sell. However, it was during the night when things took a turn for the worst. Ali had settled down in the boat, exhausted from a long, hard day at work. Only he had no clue that he was being watched from the shadows. Two glowing eyes stared at Ali, watching to make sure that the young man had fallen asleep and that he had no clue about what was going to happen. As the man slept, a large tiger stealthily slipped into the river and made a beeline for the boat that Ali was sleeping in. As quiet as a ninja, the tiger got close to the side of the boat before making its attack. In one moment, Ali was fast asleep, worried about nothing. And then, in a matter of seconds, he felt an immense pain, like nothing he had ever felt before, coming from his face. It was only after a few seconds had passed that Ali was able to fully realize what had just happened to him. His face had been slashed by a tiger's knife-like claws. The claws of a tiger usually grow up to 10 centimeters, or 4 inches in length, and they are used to grasp and hold on to prey.
He was messed up so bad, He had YouTube done blocked this man video. He had to go back and edit it and then repost it. Like, damn.
So that it doesn't escape. After realizing what was going on, Ali let out a muffled, pain-filled scream. He was terrified of the tiger and of the thought that if he didn't get help, then the animal's next attack could possibly be fatal. However, the man found that his face was so painful to try and move that even trying to make the slightest of sounds almost made him pass out from the pain. It was in that moment, as the young man clutched his bleeding face, that Ali knew something terrible had happened to him, and that if he didn't get help soon, then it could possibly be too late for him. Upon hearing some strange noises coming from the boat, some of Ali's co-workers went to investigate what was happening. When they saw the tiger, though, they were horrified. The scene that they had come across looked like it could have come straight out of a horror film. There was blood everywhere, and Ali was holding his face, where all of the blood seemed to be coming from. In that moment, the tiger grabbed Ali by the back of his clothes and proceeded to try and drag him out of the boat and into the river below. Feeling the animal trying to move him, Ali felt an overwhelming amount of terror seize him. The young man wasn't ready to die, but he was in so much pain that he couldn't find it within himself to try and fight the tiger's hold on him. Luckily, the rest of the crew understood what the tiger was trying to do, and they began to scare it off by creating as much noise as possible. Their plan worked, and the tiger ran off into the night. But the ordeal wasn't over yet. Ali had been seriously injured, and he needed medical attention right away. The young man's co-workers immediately made their way to the nearest hospital, where Ali was able to be treated properly. Thankfully, the doctors were able to save Ali's life. However, the teenager had been left with serious scars. The tiger's attack had left the man missing a large portion of his face. It seemed as if the animal's claws had ripped straight through Ali's face, leaving him needing extensive reconstruction work to his face. Heartbroken at this news, Ali knew that his life had been changed forever. Over the next 20 years or so, Ali kept himself hidden away in his home as much as he could. The man worried that if he was seen out and about, he would be ridiculed for how he looked, and his family would also be bullied because of him. He especially worried that his daughters wouldn't be able to find husbands because of how he looked. When Ali had to go out of the house, he would always wear a cloth over his face so that he wasn't constantly stared at, and so that he didn't scare the local children. But within the last few years, Ali has been able to save up his money so that he could get plastic surgery to try and reconstruct his face so that it looked a bit more like how it used to look. Thankfully, the surgeries all went incredibly well, and he is now happy with how he looks and is not afraid to show his face to the world anymore, which is all he had ever wanted since that fateful day on the river. Now he has more confidence in his and his family's future. Even though the tiger attacked Ali, it wasn't acting maliciously. It was simply following its natural instinct to hunt easy prey. Sometimes that just so happens to be a person in the tiger's eyes.
Hey, you see how his country didn't stack up hella medical bills on him? He got to save up his money. Go get that surgery. Other dude from the last clip, $1 million medical bills. That's crazy. You see how the US do they people?
In this case, Ali. Despite his face being ripped apart and shredded, he is lucky to have escaped what was almost certainly meant to be his terrifying final affliction.
Marcus is a connoisseur of anything that's free, so he was happy to read the disclaimer on TurboTax.
Dunia Sibomana was 6 years old. He lived in the Congo with his family. Tragically, his mother had died a few years before, and he was raised by his father and extended family. He and his younger brother, who was just 4 years old, regularly played with their cousin. They lived in a rural settlement beside one of Congo's equatorial forests, Virunga National Park, a national park that was home to a large number of chimpanzees. These great apes are highly territorial. They can be incredibly aggressive and brutal towards intruders, regularly patrolling their territories, hunting and eating smaller animals. The park covers an area of more than 3,000 square miles. It is an incredibly biodiverse ecosystem, offering protection for the incredibly rare mountain gorilla. It is listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, with 2 active volcanoes being located within the park. It is home to more than 3,000 animal and plant species, 300 of which are endemic to the Albertine Rift Valley in which the park resides. Many communities live in and around the park, competing with the animals found there. Dunia left his home one afternoon in 2013. The weather was clear. He headed outside to play with his younger brother and their older cousin. The 3 of them were inseparable. All similar in age, they loved to play together and explore the outskirts of their village. Although the surrounding wilderness was picture perfect and a huge draw for international tourists, it was also dangerous. Predators and wild animals lived amongst the trees. Poachers and anti-poaching patrols regularly clashed, and armed conflict between the different regions often broke out due to political instability. A troop of chimpanzees was making their way along the forest floor looking for food, always alert to potential threats. They could hear the young children playing a short distance away. A few of the males broke off from the rest of the group, patrolling their territory, moving closer to the youngsters. Then they spotted them through the undergrowth, the 3 children running around after each other on the dry, dusty track that led out of their village bordering the park. Suddenly, Dunia looked up to see 4 fully grown chimpanzees running at them. They covered the ground rapidly and ran straight into the three boys. They screamed. Their screams were heard by others in the village who all came running. The attack was brutal. The strength of the chimpanzees was overpowering. It was no match for the tiny children. They brought their hands crashing down on top of the three terrified youngsters, cracking ribs and expelling air from their lungs. They gasped, each defenseless against the chimps. They bit into them, their powerful jaws, and
That's so sad. Them boys ain't deserve that. What the hell?
sharp teeth delivering fatal
Where they
bites.
parents
Blood
at?
poured from their open wounds as the frenzy continued. Dunia managed to scramble to his feet and stumble back towards the village, where he bumped into the villagers who had been alerted to their cries. He was barely conscious. Blood ran from his face, which was barely recognizable. He was battered and bruised from being pummeled by the powerful apes. There had been no warning for the attack. The boys had not provoked the chimpanzees. They were merely playing by themselves, oblivious to the fact that they were encroaching on the chimps' territory. But the attackers were merciless and didn't stop until the boys' cries went silent. Dunia's father rushed him to the nearest medical center, where he received emergency treatment, but his face was so badly disfigured that no one was sure if he would make it. His right ear and facial muscles were destroyed. The middle finger of his left hand was bitten off, and his lips had been torn from his face. In the forest, Dunia's little brother was found motionless on the ground, his bones broken and skull fractured. His face was bitten and torn. The tiny 4-year-old had succumbed to the brutal attack. The chimpanzees had fled back into the national...
That's, oh my god, that's my daughter's age, bro. That's crazy. Poor thing. Oh, poor thing.
Park, and Dunia's older cousin was nowhere to be found. Rangers set out looking for him, but they found no trace. Many believe that if he hadn't died from his injuries, then he may be hiding out somewhere, perhaps at another village, disfigured and too ashamed to return home to his family. Very slowly, the young Dunia grew stronger from his injuries. His bones healed and his wounds closed up. But the attack left him with a severely disfigured face. He no longer had any lips. His cheek was torn apart, and he was left with muscle damage that made it hard to swallow or communicate. He drooled a lot because he couldn't close his mouth or swallow properly. Eating became difficult, and he lost weight. The villagers shunned him. He tried to attend school, but the harassment and bullying made it too difficult for him. His friends distanced themselves from him, and adults ignored him. He had no life in the Congo anymore.
That's so wrong.
He was miserable and severely traumatized from the attack. Whilst villagers gave up on Dunia, the rangers at the park didn't. They had contacts with Dr. Richard Leakey, a world-renowned anthropologist who knew a plastic surgeon in the States. Dr. Alexander Dagum and his friend, Dr. Leon Klempner, associate professor of dentistry, both worked at Stony Brook University Hospital. This was the hospital associated with the university where Richard Leakey worked. They managed to arrange for Dunia to visit the hospital in America and undergo surgery to fix his face. His father stayed behind in the Congo, whilst one of the rangers accompanied the young boy to the United States. It was a huge cultural shock for the Congolese boy, and he didn't know what lay ahead of him. But it was the only option he had, and he had to grasp it with both hands. Although he was nervous, the kindness of Richard, Alexander, and Leon shone through. So did that of the American people. Dunia was immediately accepted into the Long Island community. He was taken in by a host family in the Hafog area and attended school there. It was the first time he went to class, and he immediately made friends. He and the 9-year-old daughter of the host family, Annabelle, became best friends, each morning walking arm in arm to elementary school together. He learned English and took a liking to American food, something he had never tasted before. He and Annabelle played endlessly together. She would read him stories at bedtime, play video games with him, and make him snacks. Within days of arriving in America, he underwent surgery. Typically, the reconstruction of a lip is performed using tissue from the other lip, but Dunia had lost both lips. The The plastic surgeon took some tissue from his left forearm, which contained a blood vessel and a sensory nerve, and used it to reconstruct Dunia's mouth. The procedure had only been done once or twice before in the whole world, but they needed to give it a go. The hardest part was ensuring that Dunia could have sensation in his lips, which is so important when eating and speaking. The surgery lasted 12 hours, and he had since had 14 more surgeries. But the initial operation was a success, and the boy who had lost all hope and who had been dismissed by those who raised him was now thriving in the U.S. At first, it was assumed that he would return to his home in the Congo and attend boarding school after his year in America, but he decided to stay stateside. He didn't want to return to Africa again. It held too many bad memories for him. In fact, not long after arriving in America, he wanted to forget all about his homeland and refused to speak Swahili, his mother tongue. But his host family persuaded him to spend time with a Congolese family at weekends. They lived locally and helped keep the traditional value of his Congo heritage alive through sharing their culture, language, and clothing with the young Dunia. Gradually, he began to embrace his old life alongside his new one. He attended Long Beach High School, and one thing was for sure: he was a fighter. He had overcome so much in his short life, and it was clear that he was incredibly strong when he focused on moving forward from that disastrous day in the Congo. In fact, he showed how much of a fighter he was when he dedicated his spare time to wrestling. In February 2022, he won the 102-pound wrestling title at the Nassau County High School Wrestling Championships, and then went on to win the state title a couple of weeks later. He is still living in America, studying hard and playing hard, making every second of his life count, something that his little brother never had the chance to do. He was supported by 2 host families in America before being taken in by his Long Beach assistant wrestling coach, Miguel Rodriguez. He and his wife adopted Dunia, and he became a permanent U.S. resident in 2019. From his traumatic early life, Dunia has overcome so much, and with his sporting success, it is unlikely that this will be the last time we hear about him. His life has already been a success story of how a young boy overcame all odds, narrowly escaping his terrifying final.
His time coming. He gonna get rich, get that plastic surgery. That's about to be a new man. Watch. But if you made it this far, like, comment, share, and hit that sub button. Man, I hope all the people that got done in real bad, and all the, you feel me, all the people that didn't get their videos on here or don't got a video to get on here, that went through it. I hope y'all are doing well, and I hope y'all staying blessed. If you made it this far, like, comment, share, and hit that sub button. It's your boy Deuce. We out of here.